In this second part of the functional group, I want to start with this particular compound. What if you have a compound like this? We have a compound R attached to a nitrogen with a two hydrogen. Now this particular functional group is known as an amine. An amine. This is a generic form and is known as an amine. Now we have a nitrogen bonded to two hydrogen, and then when it's linked to a chain like this, you're known as an amine. Take for instance, if it's linked to a single carbon chain, we have CH3 NH2. Now to name this particular functional group, which is an amine, you say this side is a methyl group, so you say methyl amine. So if it is a ethyl group, if it's an ethyl group, you say ethylamine. If it's a propyl group, you say propylamine. If it's a butyl group, you say butylamine. You understand? And by the way, whenever you see, let's say methane, we have CH4, right, for methane. If it's linked, if methane becomes a functional group like we did at the part 1, you will drop one of the H and link it to another group. Let's say as you drop one H, link it to, and let's say as you drop one H, you link it to an NH2, it becomes methyl instead of methane. Sorry, instead of methane. Right? You drop the ANE and put YL, methyl. So in this case, we call it a methylamine. Now, what if you have another functional group as this? We have R linked to this is a generic form, and then we have NH2, sorry, CH2, NH2. Now you see, in this case, we're having a carbonyl carbon at the middle of the chain, and then we're having NH2. This can also be written sometimes. You can see it in some textbook like written like this. You can see it written as RCONH2. Sometimes you can see it written like this in textbooks. Now, in both cases, what do you call this particular functional group? Now, this functional group is referred to as an amide. An amide. The difference between an amide and an amine is the presence of this carbonyl carbon. Now let's write an example of an amide. If we have something like this, then we have here we have the carbon that carries the carbonyl carbon, and then we have the. To name this particular compound, we start a numbering at the side that contains the amine, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Now, since it's 4, we know that it's butane, right? Now you add amide, so it's going to be butan. You drop the ending E and add amide, so it becomes butanamide, right? What if you have a functional group so that has a generic form like R, C, triple bond, N? Now, in this particular functional group is known as nitrile. This particular functional group is known as nitrile. And let's take an example. Let's say we have CH3, C, triple bond, N. Now to name this particular functional group, we count this side where we count the number of carbon chain. We have 1, 2 carbon chains. So that's ethane. So we are going to write ethane nitride. This is acid anhydride. Particular name for this acid anhydride is known as acetic anhydride. It's similar to ethyl. It has two carbon chain. You see, two carbon chain, 1 2 1 2. So it's acetic anhydride. So what if you have a functional group like this? We'll have the carbonyl carbon, and then we'll have a halogen at the end. So this particular functional group, you can call it an acid chloride. So if it's attached to, let's say, you will have it here, attached to maybe another halogen, maybe bromine, you can call it an acid bromide, right? So it can be attached to a fluorine, an acid fluoride. It can attach to an iodine, an acid iodide, right? Iodide. Now, what if we have a functional group such as what if we have a functional group like this? And then we have an OH. You know, this we have treated this to be an alcohol, right? Now, what if this OH is replaced? Let's say we have a similar functional group, now replaced with an SH. What will you call this kind of functional group? Now, whenever you see SH at the end of a chain, or you see sulfur in the chain, you add the word thiol. Thiol, right? Now, this is an alcohol. Alcohol. This is an alcohol, and this one is known as a thiol, right? Now, what if you now have an ester, CH3, an ester? We have an ester. Sorry, an ether, not ester, please. This should be T. This EH. This is an ether. This is not an ester. It's an ether. Whenever you see oxygen double bonded to 2R group, is an ether. Now, this is an ether. What if you now replace that ether? You replace it. You have C double bond like this. What if you now replace a C double bond like this? Now, instead of oxygen, you put sulfur, and then you put C double. You put another carbon atom at the end. Now, this particular one is called a thiol ether, right? Now, let's take another example. Let's take an instance of an ester. Let's say we have, right? We have an ester like this. This is an ester. Now, what if you replaced one of the oxygen, this particular one? Let's say we will put it like this. Put the carbonyl. They'll replace this one with a sulfur. So this particular compound will now be thiol ester. So you see, an alcohol, a thiol. You see, ester, thioester, ether, thioether. So whenever you see sulfur included in a compound, you put the word thiol. So what if you have a functional group like this? And then we have a double bond here. What if you have a functional group like this? What do you name it? Now this functional group comprises of an alkene, and then an alcohol. Right? And this functional group is known as an enol. This part, the En part, comes from the alkene, and the Ol part comes from the alcohol. So this particular functional group, we have En from E, and we have Ol from Ol. So we call it an enol. And what if we have another functional group such as this particular functional group? We have a nitrogen that is bonded to two R groups. And by the way, even this particular group is also an R group, right? And this particular compound is known as an enamine. Now this E represents for what? For an alkene, right? So it's known as an enamine, right? So what if we have a functional group like this? And then we have a double bond to a nitrogen, and then the nitrogen is connected to an R group, just a single R group. This particular functional group is known as an imine, right? Now, what if we have you ever seen something like this? Hydrogen bond to and then to another hydrogen. Now, whenever you see something like this, if you see a oxygen bonded to another oxygen, like the way you see it here, it's referred to as peroxide. Like in this case, because it's hydrogen, you call it hydrogen because it's an hydrogen, you call it hydrogen peroxide, right? Now what if you now have it in an organic compound? We have R, now this is the peroxide group, but now in this case we don't have it attached to two hydrogen, but we have it attached to two R group. So in this case you call it organic peroxide. What if you have a functional group like this? We have R group directly attached to nitrogen having O2. This particular functional group is known as a nitro group.